and welcome. You're watching NewsX and I'm Megha Sharma. Now, South Korean President Yoon Yeol is facing an impeachment motion days after he surprised the world by announcing a martial law. As per the latest news coming in from Seoul, ruling party lawmakers have left the chamber before the vote, hence delaying the impeachment motion. Shortly before this impeachment motion, the president apologized for announcing the martial law, accepting that it had caused anxiety across the nation. With increasing protests and an impeachment vote wherein the ruling party led by President Yeol only has 8 lawmakers above the majority mark, will South Korea witness a regime change? Is President Yoon's worry that the regime change is being pushed by pro-North Korea leaders genuine? And if that's true, what lies ahead for Asia's 4th largest democracy? Let's start our conversation. Joining me on the telecast is Dr. Satoru Nagao. Thank you very much. And Dr. Nagao, let's go back in time. 1948 is when South Korea got its independence from Japanese colonialism. Since then, the South Korean regime has been dictatorial up until 1980s. There have been several times that martial law has been implemented. There have been protests that have turned violent, where the authorities have meted out atrocities against these pro-democracy protesters. Do you think the attempt that this time around was being made by President Yoon to impose martial law was an attempt to ensure that he continues to remain in power and fight any kind of dissent?
Yes and no in this case, because yes, view from the South Korea's history, imposing martial law is not rare. Indeed, after the Korean War, for South Korea's political regime, military is the main power of the South Korean government to form the government. So that's why unlike India's independence movement is not a non-violent movement. And in case of Japan lost war in the World War II. After that, new governments won. In this case, military role is very limited. But in case of the South Korea or Asian country, many Asian countries, the military contribution is common to achieve independence or form the government. That's why their sense, their perception towards military is something more political. Under such kind of situations, South Korea, if the South Korean president try to use the military to extend the president's power, is indeed harder, is lower than India or Japan, these countries. That is maybe we should understand in this case, I believe. So this is very big decision, but a little bit easier decision compared with us.
Okay. Okay. Ambassador Baswati Mukherjee, does it come as a surprise to you that right before the impeachment vote was to take place in the parliament, less than 2/3 of the lawmakers stayed back, which obviously virtually then ensuring that the impeachment motion was null and void against the president, and he continues to stay in power?
Well, Megha, it was very clear that the impeachment motion would not pass because the party to which the president belongs had clearly said that they would not be in favor of an impeachment motion. On the other hand, I would like to tell my co-panelists who spoke before me that there are certain requirements with regard to a functional democracy, and South Korea is a functional democracy. So therefore, for an elected president to impose martial law in this manner, even if it has been done several times, and I was looking at the list of the times that the impeachment has been, that the martial law has been imposed in this manner, and he is right, it has been done many times. But the point is, conditions have changed, South Korea has changed, and it is against democratic traditions to impose martial law in this manner just as it was against democracy for Mrs. Indira Gandhi to have imposed emergency so many decades ago. It is not expected in a good functional democracy for an elected head of state to behave in this manner. That being said, I understand that the president has also now, in the best traditions of South Korea, also apologized. And I think that under those circumstances, perhaps things will go back to a certain amount of normalcy. But the fact that there was an effort to impose martial law and that the lawmakers came back and voted against it actually speaks very well for the strength of the South Korean democracy and the manner in which it has been strengthened over the years. So I would say that it is a good step forward in demonstrating that South Korea has changed from the past and is now a much stronger democratic model than it was earlier. Megha.
Rubinder Sachdev, what's your view? You know, we're talking about martial law and the number of times it has been imposed in South Korea, 16 times, and it's 15 times too many. How do you view the situation? Do you at this time a democracy that has thrived in South Korea since 1987? Are the people then living under the fear that an autocratic regime or an attempt to a dictatorial regime is being perpetuated by the current government led by President Yoon?
Thank you so much, Megha. You know, by chance, that night I had a house guest staying with me for 3 days, a South Korean gentleman, and he came running to my, he was my house guest, to my room and said, Robin, that this has happened, etc. And we spent the entire night watching the TV, and he trying to decode and tell me his view. He's a supporter of Yoon, he's a conservative, by the way, right? So the point is, from what I've gathered and what we see, firstly, this is shocking. What happened is completely, absolutely shocking. It should not have had happened in Korea. Yes, the subsequent steps, the convening of the National Assembly and overturning it and, Yoon agreeing to it, fine. Yeah, that speaks to the resilience and the strength of Korean democracy, no doubt. But the point is, in the first instance, it should not have had happened. Now, why did he do it? Even that's not known. Perhaps the big picture everybody is concluding, at least several, is that he felt cornered, he could not, move any of his policy agendas. The opposition party, they have a huge majority in the parliament. They have about 180 seats out of 300. His party has around 120 seats.
And still, the majority of the lawmakers seem to be supporting him, because right ahead of the impeachment motion, there are not enough lawmakers. You need those 200 and more lawmakers to cast their vote for the motion to be moved, but the numbers aren't there.
No, the numbers, what's happening is out of 300, the opposition has about 190 or so odd. His own party has about 110. And the reason they're opposing the impeachment, his party, they know that if he is impeached, there will be a new election. And if there's a new election, the opposition will, he'll win in a landslide. So his party, for its own sake, to not allow, let's say, the Democrat Party, the other party, to come to power, is standing with him for impeachment. But by the way, the leader of Yoon's own party, Mr. Han, who has his own group within the parliament, within the party, has been opposing Yoon. And he has been going, meandering. And by the way, from what I understand, the vote is still on till midnight. Okay, so if till midnight, 200 lawmakers, that means about 10 from Mr. Yoon's party have to defect. And that's what the conservatives are worried about. That's why they've all walked out. They've taken everyone with them. Let's go out. They are worried that some among them may, quote unquote, betray and vote for the impeachment motion. And then Yoon will be, impeached. But it will go to a constitutional court, which is a separate matter. But he will be impeached. So I think the jury is still out, from what I understand, till midnight this night.
Okay, let's hear it from my fourth panelist, Alok Bansal, Director, India Foundation. How do you view the justification that has been given by the President for imposing the martial rule that was short-lived, just a few hours? He says that there was a push for a regime change by pro-North Korea leaders. Do you think there is any truth to it?
See, I think the justification that he's giving is actually a lame excuse given after the proposal has been defeated. Considering South Korea's troubled history, at least till 1980, of authoritarian regimes, misuse of martial law, misuse of military, I'm sure the population is extremely wary. And I think even now, when this impeachment motion is being debated, most people from Yoon's own party actually believe that he's not fit to be president, but they don't wish to support the impeachment notion for reasons as Mr. Sachdeva has already brought out. So it's actually a chaotic situation at the moment. I think what I know is that 8 more members they need actually from the from his party to actually ensure that the motion goes through. At the moment, I think it is being debated. His party members have all walked out of the parliament. I think one member is sitting.
Yeah.
And he seems to be opposing the motion at the moment. So that is the situation. So it's actually a country where the political system has come to a flux because of this sudden action taken by the president, which actually put the whole country into a turmoil. I think it will have an impact as far as South Korea is concerned. I think for past few days there have been a lot of lot of impact on the economic activity also within South Korea.
Okay.
And I'm sure at the moment, I think the Democratic Party and the Conservatives must be negotiating, I think, some way out as to what should happen, whether the impeachment should be taken up or should not be taken up, or what happens if the president resigns. All those issues probably must be getting debated at this point of time.
Dr. Satoru Nagao, how are the countries surrounding South Korea, particularly China and Japan, Taiwan, reacting to the whole situation? Now, does this upheaval, which was sudden and unwarranted in South Korea, also make Japan wary of the kind of strong relations both countries have currently, being the allies of United States of America, who are also at this point of time fighting the autocracy of and the expansionist agenda of the Chinese in the region?
Yes, that is an important point, because in this case, many countries compare current government and the previous government. Current government is led by President Yoon, is relatively pro-US and pro-Japan, and so Japan enjoys this situation, US enjoys this situation. That's why trilateral cooperation against North Korea, China, Russia has happened. But under previous government, he tried to negotiate with North Korea, China, Russia at the same time, especially North Korea and China. So that's why the United States dislikes Moon Jae-in government, which is president of the previous government, who is the president of the previous government. That time, President Trump disliked him very much, and he tried to negotiate with Kim Jong-un of the North Korea directly. So he tried to skip the South Korea's president. So that has happened. So in this case, it is very difficult to promote trilateral cooperation of the US, Japan, and South Korea. And especially as a common way, South Korea president used anti-Japan card to rise popularity. That is the pattern. In this case, the party is not the matter. Both sides choose this course. So, but President Yoon was a very rare character who did not commit anti-Japan card.
Okay.
He had to commit it. So that's why.
Okay, all right. Ambassador Basuti Mukherjee, talking about how there has been quite the upheaval that is taking place across the globe, and particularly when we focus on Europe. Whether we take a look at the French Prime Minister, who has been uninstalled now, we take a look at Germany, where there are fresh elections, snap elections that have been announced. Georgia, where we've seen pro-EU protests that have been taking place in large scale, and they have been brought down by way of violent measures by the law and order agencies that have been dictated to do so by the government that has just been recently elected. Or we talk about Romania, where there are again calls for fresh elections to take place. And then you take a look in Asia and particularly in South Korea. What is this indicative of?
It is indicative of a state of flux, where actually an alarming development is the fall of Aleppo in Syria to the would appear to be ISIS rebels. Another city apparently is fallen, which means that are we now looking at fresh unrest in the Middle East, a fresh civil war-like situation in Syria by rebels who have been armed apparently by Turkey. We have a situation where Bangladesh has deployed Turkish-made drones on the India-Bangladesh border. Now we have widening possibility of war in the Middle East. So it shows a state of flux and it shows a state of uncertainty in a situation where President Trump is yet to be inaugurated and the US deep state is also still very active and will continue to be active until President Trump is actually elected on 20th of January. So it's a tricky situation. We need to watch it carefully. But I would say that as far as South Korea is concerned, today's topic of discussion, while what happened was very unfortunate, it would appear that the worst is over and that the president will not be impeached for the reasons my co-panelists have pointed out. But on the other hand, the fact that he could descend to this level also indicates that he is not a real Democrat, because what he tried to do was completely anti-democratic and would have resulted in a reversal of South Korea's democracy. So regardless of the position that he has vis-a-vis Japan or any other country, the point is that if he had succeeded, it would not have been good for democracy in South Korea. So it was excellent that he could not succeed in imposing martial law.
Rubinder Sachdev, again, your opinion. You know, President Yoon, who won the election by a very thin margin, and here he has the ambitions to continue to be president for a long period of time. In wake of the martial rule that he wanted to impose, unfortunately, it could not be executed as per his will. Now he's put all the blame on the defense minister. And he has made him to resign from his post. How does Korea ensure that democracy prevails?
Wow, great question. How does Korea ensure democracy prevails? I think partly what we are seeing the process playing out, the people out there and the parliamentarians. One. Second, you know, Mr. Yoon has been accused of or known of running his government in the form of a tribalism. The defense minister was his schoolmate right since childhood. He has appointed people who are very close to him, his circle, coterie of friends. So one, he kind of insulated himself from what's happening. Apparently, he got so frustrated over the last 2 years by not being able to move any of his agenda. He took this decision in a matter, sometimes in a peak, just, complete, a loss of, let's say, sensibility in a way. And he has brought shame on the country. And in fact, I was discussing the other day, and we have Nagao-san here, somebody who, brings such shame to the country. He's been accused of treason also, by the way. In Japan, what would you do if you committed such an act? You brought so much shame to your country. Okay, and in Korea, there's a difference. I was reminded of, let's say, ancient practice of, some kind of penance, etc. So would Yoon go down this path? No. He has to, he could cling to power right now, but what the opposition is saying, they're saying that even if we lose the impeachment motion today, we will bring this motion every week. I was just listening on BBC. One of the opposition leaders was saying that, okay, we'll bring this motion every week. So this will go on. There is going to be uncertainty, it seems. And his popularity was already very low. His popularity has gone further down. I think it's down to 9% or 10%. He was at 20%. And he is accused of some criminal doings, some corruption. And the irony is, so is the opposition leader, Mr. Kim Jong-un, the gentleman. He's been accused of, or he has various cases going on against him of corruption in land development, etc. He was the governor of a province earlier. So the point is that it is a battle playing out right now, and one doesn't know as to how this will end out there,
Yeah.
and if the burst is over. I honestly don't know. I mean, yeah.
Okay. Alok Bansal, again, what is this development, the martial law, it being revoked, impeachment motion against the president in all likelihood is not going to go through. He continues to be the president. Do you think it will have, a considerable, substantial impact on global affairs, and particularly in Southeast Asia?
See, firstly, we need to understand that as far as South Korea's history is concerned, nothing is new. There have been martial laws, plenty, till 1980s. There have been impeachment as late as 2016. So presidents have been impeached, there have been martial law. But the way martial law was imposed, and after 44 years, it was obviously abhorrible. And as a result, what we saw, and which is a very big positive, that people protested. People en masse protested, and parliamentarians cutting across party line opposed it. This is what is important, that when an issue like this came, people rose over their party affiliation and opposed something which was to have ushered in undemocratic governance in the country. Now, will it have an effect internationally? See, what is the fact is that President Yoon had taken a hawkish line on North Korea, was cozying up to Japan. I don't think so any of this is going to get affected, because he used this pretext that the opposition was doing it at the behest of North Korea, and tried to play up their closeness with North Korea. That's what he tried to probably project. It did not work out. The only thing I think which will happen is, I think domestically he'll now be a lame duck president if he manages to avoid the impeachment. I'm still not sure whether he has avoided it decisively, or still the process is going on, because it is something which is happening. It's a dynamic process which you are trying to cover at this point of time.
Okay.
There are developments taking place. I really don't know.
Okay.
But even if he manages to avoid impeachment, his position will be extremely weakened. His own political party leader is actually asking that he's not fit to be a president, and issues like that.
Okay,
So
all right.
he will remain under pressure, and I think...
Okay. Ambassador Mukherjee, again, the question arises is the trustworthy of South Korea as the custodian and the pioneer of being a democracy comes under question, keeping in mind that when you talk about the global crisis that is at this point, crises that are at this point of time emerging from different parts of the world, and when we focus particularly on the Ukraine versus Russia war, and there you see United States with its allies South Korea and Japan, when they talk about how they are fighting for the sovereignty of Ukraine, how there are democracies that are at play working together against the authoritarian role that they claim Russia to be. Does that get dented in the narrative that is being played?
No, I don't think so at all. First of all, South Korea's foreign policy is, I can't say controlled by United States, but there is an arrangement by which United States suggests South Korean foreign policy. That's the way it's always been. Even when Ban Ki-moon was UN Secretary General, this was one of the issues that was raised before he got elected. So South Korea's foreign policy will continue to be a pro-American foreign policy, and it will change only if the US president changes American foreign policy. As far as the imperatives are concerned about whether it's Japan's position on Ukraine or South Korea's position on Ukraine, they both have an anti-Russian position, which of course India does not share. That's not going to change either. So those imperatives don't change at all. What would change is that in case President Trump is able to broker a peace in Ukraine, naturally that would be supported globally, and it would certainly be supported by South Korea, because, as I said, South Korea's foreign policy follows American foreign policy much more even than Trudeau's foreign policy follows American foreign policy. These are countries that have their foreign policy completely in line with American foreign policy. So it doesn't matter whether the president is impeached, there's a new president, in which party he belongs to, they will always follow American foreign policy.
Okay, all right. Coming to you, Alok, and Ravinder, and talking about, the martial law, the emergency that was a few months ago also imposed by Justin Trudeau for a considerable period of time. So, are comparisons also going to be drawn over there, or as Trudeau continues to be presented in a narrative that continues to support Trudeau to be a Democrat, to somebody who upholds the idea of democratic rule? Do you think this is also a comparison that is going to be made? Because here we talk about emergency that was imposed by the then Prime Minister of India, Indira Gandhi. Can similar comparisons be made by Justin Trudeau, who imposed the emergency? I don't know if he faced as much flack as South Korea and President Yoon at this time are facing.
You're right. If we recollect, I think Trudeau did not face as much flack as Yoon is facing here. Perhaps the emergency, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that Trudeau imposed was maybe limited in scope and limited in mandate and all. Here, I mean, he imposed a martial law wherein army is in control. It can arrest you anytime, haul you up, etc. That's what Yoon did. But by the way, Trudeau has been downsized. Trump wants Canada to be the 51st state of the United States. He has told him over dinner a few days ago when he went to Mar-a-Lago to discuss the tariffs. So Trump told him, if you're so unhappy with the tariffs, just make Canada the 51st state and you can be the governor of the 51st state. So Trudeau has, I think, has very challenging times ahead of him. But coming back to a particular question which you were asking, and which Ambassador Mukherjee also mentioned, all of this what's happening, flux. There is flux happening inside the countries, and there is flux happening between the countries, right? And inside the countries, the flux which is happening, it seems that is either moving more to the left or more to the right, depends wherever. The middle space is being vacated. Generally, either you're having, one side or the other coming who's supposed to be more on the right or on the left. So that's the widening drift within the nations which is happening in terms of the flux. And then between the nations, yes, all of this dynamic is going on that we are covering and discussing, I would think.
Okay, all right. On that note, I'm out of time. I thank all of you for joining me on the telecast, and thanks for watching NewsX.